Welcome to the Data Dialogues podcast, where we discuss all things data to keep your marketing fresh and fierce. Each week, our host, Larisa Bedgood, Head of Marketing, brings you new episodes with expert insights on how the world of data is evolving and shaping the future of marketing. Join us as we discuss the latest trends and tune into conversations that matter, as we bridge the gap between technical expertise and practical applications.
Hello, everyone. Thanks for joining our podcast today. My name is Larisa Bedgood, and I am the head of marketing at PGM. And joining me today is Michelle Taves. Welcome, Michelle.
Great to be here. So excited.
Yeah, so Michelle is the VP and Group GM of Data and Marketing here at PGM. And today we have a fun episode for you. We are busting data myths. So before we get into maybe, data myths that can be practical applications for marketers, I'd love to find out what are some data myths that you have heard of, Michelle, that are not true, or just regular myths.
Let's see here. So when I think about this, I think one of the myths that I thought was really interesting is I've been a dog mom like my entire life, have grown up with dogs. And then when I got married, had several dogs. And I always thought that dogs saw black and white. Like, I just always thought that growing up, thought it was fact. And as I started to look into it a little bit more, I actually found out that dogs can see color. It's limited spectrum compared to humans, so it's not quite how humans see color, but dogs cannot only see in black and white.
I did not know that. So I was today years old. I'm not going to say how old that is, but I was today years old when I learned that. Okay, so I have one because when we were doing the research for this podcast, you and I discussed some like fun myths, and I thought this one was pretty fun, and I'm so relieved to learn this. The myth is you swallow an average of 8 spiders per year while sleeping. No, it is not true. Busted.
I don't even know who came up with that. Like, that's just crazy to think about it, but yeah.
My thought is that somebody was sleeping next to somebody that was snoring, and they're like, nah, no snoring, keep your mouth shut, otherwise you're going to start. So I'm pretty sure that's it, because I just don't think I don't think there's 8 spiders that are, I hope not, crawling around my bed ready to jump in my mouth, but I don't know. This is actually a very fun episode. I feel like we could do a whole episode on, regular myth busting.
That might be more fun, but I think we've got to go on.
Moving on, people. Maybe we'll throw a couple of other, myths in there at some point.
Sounds good.
We will start with this one. The myth is you can collect any type of data you want. That is a falsehood. Yeah, we need a buzzer. We'll have to get a buzzer sound effect. But no, in reality, there's so many privacy laws. So many, started with like GDPR in Europe and, CCPA and a whole host of different privacy laws that have since been enacted, that just have really strict limits on the types of data that can be collected. Any thoughts on that, Michelle?
Just for someone who's been in the data business, like pretty much my whole career, it's been interesting watching the different privacy laws start, stop, right? Yeah. There's tons of active conversation on what is the right thing to do and how to manage this. When I think about it, I think of really what your main goal should be is talking to consumers who are really interested in having the conversation with you. I think that when you do that in a very compliant way, because you have to respect people's privacy, right? If somebody does not want to be talked to, then you shouldn't, right? And so we've done a few things, right, where we obviously make sure that everything that we have permission to be able to use across our products, our design, and our tech stack. We also make sure that if a consumer comes out and they basically are saying, hey, we're not interested in receiving any communications, you got to react upon that quickly, right, and take it seriously and be able to eliminate from your data spine and remove all of the information that you might have. I think the other thing that is super important for any business that collects data is have someone who really stays on top of these regulations to make sure that you are abiding by the law. And the most important thing is that you are treating consumer data how they want it to be treated.
Right.
And in that statement, that they is the consumer.
Right. Yeah. Great point. It's really about being very transparent too. And, when you are collecting data or on a form that somewhere you have it, explicitly and clearly stated that this is what it's going to be used for. And a lot of times consumers are willing to share their data with you or with brands in exchange for freebies. Think about, a great example is, if you sign up for our birthday club, we'll give you a free piece of cake, a free, discount, whatever on your birthday. And so consumers are willing to do an exchange of data. So if you can offer value for some of those things, that's a great way to collect more data in a privacy environment, really.
Yeah.
So
As we go to myth two, Larisa,
Yeah.
I'm going to give another personal myth that I just found really interesting. Yeah. Humans only use 10% of their brain. Now, that's really crazy if you think about it, like why somebody would think that is. I have never believed in that myth. I'm not sure about you. I feel like my brain is active, even when I try and do really simple things, much less some of the really complicated things that we work on every day, right through work.
Yeah. I feel like especially, at times at work, I'm using at least a good 15%. So I'm busting that right there.
Totally agree. Maybe 20.
There you go. Okay, work data myth. Data myth number 2, data is only for big brands. Again, here's my buzzer. So in reality, anybody can use data. Small brands, medium-sized brands can access the same types of data as large brands. And when you're larger, it just becomes a little bit more complex. So you just need to put more types of parameters in place to collect that data. But it's probably easier sometimes as a smaller brand to just, you have all this rich data at your disposal. So yeah, you can most definitely start making data-driven insights and decisions on those. What are your thoughts there?
I was gonna say the thing I think about there is that I actually think as a smaller brand, you really want to be able to dive into what differentiates you from the bigger brands, right? Because you need to stand out. Right. So think of like a store like Walmart or Target. Their message isn't really to stand out all that much different, right? They almost sell everything. So think of that type of a store compared to like Michelle's bookstore, who I specialize in real specialty books and collector books, right? Data is going to be super important for me to find my audience of people that are really interested in my particular product and focus that I'm interested in, versus, the Walmarts of the world. And one of the interesting things that I learned over the last year, I've always thought that in order to really be able to do large like CTV campaigns or media campaigns, you needed to spend millions. Like I always had this idea in my mind, right? But you don't. Like you can do a really great local CTV hyper local campaign for like $5,000. And that's something that really makes it accessible to anybody to be able to target to people that are in your area. And so I think that people just got to think, I think when they think of data, they also think of big spend. And that's just not true.
Yeah, I think the CTV example is fabulous. I know when I'm researching different things. A lot of times it's actually with my Amazon search history, to tell you the truth, but I'm looking at different things. I think one of them um, was dog products. So I immediately got targeted. It was by a smaller company too, for some dog products, and I paid attention. I was in the market for that, and yeah, just your point that it's that a smaller brand doesn't even have to collect that they're not the ones collecting that data. They just work with like a data provider such as PGM or other data providers out there to access that information and set up the CTV campaign. So that's a great idea, and it's a way to build off of a consumer's active intent at the moment and what they're doing, and to immediately target them. And another example too is all of the rich data that a smaller company or really anybody has, that's just sitting, for example, maybe your email system opens and click-throughs. That is data. Those have insights. What are people clicking through to? And that again shows what they're interested in intent. So just think a little bit creatively, and yeah, you don't need to have big spend to use big data.
And some of it is you can just originate it, right? I think to your second point there, like I think when people think of data, they often think of a company like PGM. I've got to go buy this insights. There are definitely ways that you could create your own data and create your own insights and capture it on your end, and then be able to do retargeting based on those type of techniques.
Yeah, absolutely. Do you have another data myth?
Okay. This is fun. I think this is my funnest part.
Yeah.
Let's see here. Goldfish have a 3-second memory. I don't know how many people have thought about the goldfish of memory. I don't often think of them as particularly smart fish or creatures, but they can actually remember things for months. And get this, Larissa, they can be trained to perform tasks.
That's like, I don't know people that can do all that.
I know, it's better than my dog, right? Like I can't teach my dog to do too many things, but goldfish can actually be trained to perform tasks. So I thought that was super interesting.
I am obsessed with that. I am going to get some goldfish and start taking them to training classes.
Yeah, so you'll have to think about what type of task do you want your goldfish to do, right? Like, do they jump? I don't know. I think we should dig into that, and then maybe our next podcast.
I actually would like them to find the remote control for me. So, okay. Next real, marketing data myth. Myth number 3: all data is reliable. And that, folks, is not true. It becomes outdated, inaccurate very quickly. We actually talk about that quite frequently with our clients, is you've got to be doing a data cleansing, depending on your business model, but 3 months, every 6 months, once a year. It's whatever the cadence is. But there's things like addresses, phone numbers, prime example, moving. All this type of data can quickly become outdated. And yeah, it's not all reliable. You got to clean it and maintain it.
It can throw an entire campaign off, right? Like if you are doing a campaign on old data, it can just throw the entire results off. And when you think about it, Larissa, like cleaning the data, it isn't a very high expense item to do. So the ROI for making sure that you have clean, corrected, actionable data insights it's just so powerful to take that extra step.
Yeah, I actually have, I don't have it in front of me, but there's a lot of really pretty fascinating numbers on the cost of bad data, dirty data. And when you look at it and just see where a small little change, like something wrong at the beginning of the processes, how it can just magnify. And by the time you get to your campaign, it's a big variance in lost revenue, lost missed targeting, extra spend. So yeah, you clean it up is what we're saying. Okay, moving on.
Okay, myth 4. I got another
Yeah.
one. So I'm a
Good.
Chicago gal.
Yep.
Moved to Florida, but lived my whole life in Chicago. And I heard this many times. A penny dropped from the Empire State Building can kill someone.
Yeah.
That is not true. You do not reach fatal velocity due to wind resistance. A penny can cause injury if it's dropped, but it will not kill you.
What about a silver dollar?
I don't know about that one. We'll have to look that one up next time.
Let's not test it out, though.
Let's not. I will be the one on top dropping it. How about you stand below?
But Michelle, we're ready. What? Okay, myth number 4. Data replaces creativity. And that is absolutely not true. It's like no better way, data and creativity really, really work hand in hand. With the right data insights, you can understand what better resonates with your audience, and that brings your creative strategies really to life based on that. So I think that's one that I hear a lot is it's like, oh, like I'd rather just rely on my gut instinct or my intuition or so forth. We're not saying not to do that, but let data at least guide you. Let data be a tool to guide that decision making so that when you are in your creative element, you can do it within the right parameters of what the consumer or your audience targeting should be.
Right. Well, and you can never take away that data insights creates personal messaging. Ad format still matters, right? Campaign things are still important. Data is not going to replace that, and that actually brings up maybe another, podcast we do at some point about the difference between AI and people, right?
Yeah.
I believe that people really kind of offer that extra step of fine tuning, validating, and making sure that your idea is creative. And I think that you need that to really make the data most actionable also.
Yeah, perfect. Absolutely. So we have one more myth.
Okay, are we ready
I
for
feel
the final?
Yeah.
Are you ready? Okay, so I think this is one that everybody has heard at least once in their life. So this one is not far off. Lightning never strikes the same place twice. In reality, lightning can and does strike the same place multiple times, especially tall structures like skyscrapers and radio towers.
That makes sense. I just got a fun fact from wait, is this true, Kristen? So Kristen is used as our, behind the scenes person that is, the magic behind Data Dialogues. And she just told me that her husband was struck by lightning twice. So Kristen, I feel like when you edit this podcast, you will add a little bit more information there. Okay, I actually was looking a little bit because I wanted to just get one more in there, and I lost it, but it was about okay, hang on for a second. Okay, so bulls hate the color red. In fact, that is not true. Bulls are colorblind to red. They react to the motion of the cape used in bullfighting, not the color itself. So
that's super interesting because I think I've always seen the cape is red.
Yeah.
And then I believe even the person holding the cape is usually like a red hat and red pants. So yeah, that is super interesting.
I don't know, but what if we hold a red cape up to a goldfish? What will that do? I don't know.
Well, the goldfish can be trained.
Exactly. Folks, you only get it here on Data Dialogues.
And this is because our brains are working more than 10%.
I like it. And all full circle, So myth number 5. More data equals better insights. It depends on how big your brain capacity is. It's a falsehood. An overload of data can really just lead to analysis paralysis and unnecessary complexity. So think of all that data. When you have so much data, you don't even know how to make sense of it anymore. Been there with different things, and just be very cognizant. You don't need everything to make data work for you. You can start very simply with a few data elements that may move the needle. You can always layer on from there, but you don't need everything in the kitchen sink to make data work for you.
Yeah, I think the most important, when I think about getting ready for a campaign and some of the things that we want to do from a business perspective, I often start with like defining what we're trying to accomplish. And then what data do we need to be able to help us understand that accomplishment, right? Like what do we need to be able to understand the return on our investment? What are we trying to grow revenue? Are we trying to reduce spend, right? There's all these different, are we trying to grow brand presence? Are we rolling out a new product? I think all of these kind of things, once you know what you're trying to achieve, then you could go and try and decide what are the data points that I need to be able to serve that purpose, right? And then which ones are the most value to me. And then I do think keeping an open mind on analysis, I think is really important, because sometimes we almost have a tendency of making the result that we wanted to happen. Instead of letting the data talk to us, let us take our time to look at the data and the analysis, and then being able to pivot based on what the data is showing us. That's actionable insights.
Love that. This was a super, super fun episode, but alas, our time with data myths has come to an end. But with that, thank you all for joining us. And if you're interested in learning more, follow our podcast for more insights on data and marketing. And with that, stay data-driven, stay creative, and we'll catch you next time. Thanks all.
And that's a wrap. Thanks for tuning into Data Dialogues. We hope you enjoyed today's discussion and look forward to bringing you more insights and perspectives on the world of data. Be sure to subscribe on your favorite podcast platform so you don't miss an episode.